Is the Airbus A380 about to make a huge comeback and start production again? These are all the rumors that are circulating the aviation news sphere at the moment as airlines fall back in love with the Super King aircraft. Global Airlines prepares for its maiden voyage with its own Airbus A380 fleet, and there are rumors that Airbus might return to the fold with a new design. Let's jump into it today to talk everything about the Airbus A380. The Airbus A380 was the king of the skies for the longest time, but was discontinued by several airlines, particularly Air France, after a switch to more fuel-efficient twin-engine aircraft. Basically, the Airbus A380 was made for hub-to-hub travel, and it seems like that passengers preferred the point-to-point travel that the smaller aircraft provide. But the post-pandemic resurgence has seen passenger numbers increase in a huge way. That's right, people want to fly everywhere now. And it's the airlines that still have the Airbus A380, like Qantas, Emirates, and Singapore, who can't get enough of these aircraft. They're having them fly daily, sometimes twice daily trips. For example, in a few weeks' time, I'll be flying on board the Emirates A380 from Sydney to Christchurch. That's a fifth freedom flight that Emirates is flying with an Airbus A380, which is just bonkers. And it's not just those airlines, we're also seeing Lufthansa, Qatar Airways, Korean Air, and Etihad bringing back these aircraft and putting them into active service, which generally makes me very excited. But the post-pandemic traffic is not the only reason why the Airbus A380 is again so popular. It's also because Boeing has dropped the ball. Boeing was supposed to bring out the 777X aircraft, their version of the new big aircraft range that would take over from the 747 and the Airbus A380, but that's still not here yet, and airlines that have ordered the aircraft are still scratching their heads wondering when they're going to get their hands on the craft. So the passengers are here now, but they don't have the aircraft. So Airbus is able to step in with its refurbished fleet of Airbus A380 aircraft. And we're seeing like Emirates invest more into it, we're seeing Qantas invest more into it, putting on board, say, lounges, and then getting the new improved design business class suites and first class on board these aircraft. British Airways did such a thing. They've said that we will be refitting the new club suite on the upper deck and a new first class on the upper deck rather than downstairs where it is now. So British Airways is doing a full renovation of their Airbus A380s. And I feel like on one hand, seeing Air France scrap their ones, seeing British Airways do a full renovation kind of really tells you that this aircraft is very much alive. And what if I told you that there's also going to be a new airline? That's right, I'm talking about Global Airlines. This new airline has been acquiring Airbus A380s. They have one at the moment with plans to get another 4, and they plan to do London Gatwick to New York. And if you've been around for a while just like me, you'll know that High Flight used to have a wet leasable Airbus A380 that would fly from Gatwick to New York. So it's the exact same market, and I dare say, I believe that they're investigating using the same aircraft as part of the swap around, which means that this Airbus A380 in particular may end up having 3 owners throughout its hopefully very long lifetime. And so this new airline's going to have a luxurious first class, have modern business class, have a great new economy. It's all going to be renovated and brand new throughout. And they're actually putting in a lot of time into figuring out this product and service mix so they can stay very competitive against the American Airlines and also British Airways, who will be their main competitor. And whilst they were supposed to take to the skies this year, they've actually pushed it back to 2025. So we're going to have to wait a little longer to see this new aircraft in the sky. So with all of these airlines desperate for this aircraft, you've got to wonder, is Airbus sitting there thinking about what if we started to make more of these planes? Because Emirates, for one, would love to order more. And that leads me to the Airbus A380's unrealized potential. You see, the Airbus A380 was designed to be just as flexible as the Airbus A320. There was going to be several different proposed models. Not only was the Airbus A380-800, there was also going to be an A380 freighter, there was going to be a private version of the Airbus A380, there was going to be a -900 stretch, and also a -1000 stretch. Because if you didn't know this, the way Airbus designs planes is that they make a middle platform and they also shrink it and they also expand it. That's what we saw with the Airbus A320. You've got the shrink version, as in the Airbus A318, A319, as well as the expanded version, which is the Airbus A321. The Airbus A380-800 is actually the shrink of the 900. So Airbus was always going to make a bigger and more powerful version. And these versions, the 900 would take 900 passengers and the 1000 would take up to 1000 passengers. But the lack of demand and high operating costs meant that these aircraft never saw the light of day. However, just like we saw with the Neo versions of both the Airbus A320 and Airbus A330, there would also be a shift to improved engines, better fuel efficiency, and also better passenger comforts. So the Airbus A3 Neo could actually be built, or we could see an evolution into the Airbus A380 Plus. The Plus version would be a focus on lower costs per seat, special winglets, and an extended maintenance cycle. So it would be something that could be done to the existing aircraft. You wouldn't necessarily have to build a whole new airframe, which is something that I think that Airbus and all these other operators would greatly be interested in. These special split scimitar winglets would have provided 13% lower fuel burned per seat and allow an extended range of 200 nautical miles or even 50 more seats extended throughout the cabin. The head of Airbus's civil aircraft division, Christian Scherer, said in a statement to Simple Flying that the door is closed, but it's not locked, that anything is possible in this industry. So we could potentially see them re-examine the use case for an Airbus A380 Neo, and if enough airlines piled on to make another 100 aircraft order, we could potentially see something happen there. Now, of course, the Airbus A380 was never actually that commercially successful, despite the fact that around 200 units were made. So it would have to be a pretty big aircraft order for them to make a whole new aircraft. Now, that's not to be said that they don't take existing aircraft and upgrade them to the Airbus A380 Neo version. But we never saw any of these variants because the airlines at the time before the pandemic were simply not interested. This has now all changed. So with these airlines refurbing these aircraft with interest in a Neo, a Plus, or perhaps a total restart of the production line, you gotta wonder that Airbus is sitting very pretty and in a great place. But I'm going to take this a little bit further because I think they shouldn't bring back the Airbus A380 production. They should build a new double-deck aircraft. In my opinion, Airbus should close the chapter on the A380 and focus on developing a new, smaller double-deck jet, perhaps named the Airbus A390. This new twin-engine jet would have a maximum capacity of 400 to 500 passengers and use all of the technologies that were developed for the Airbus A350. While the Airbus A380 could accommodate over 800 passengers, it was typically configured for around 500, so there's no need for there to be a full 800-seater aircraft. We don't really have the demand for it, and nobody wants to sit in economy for such long flights. This proposed Airbus A390 would have up to around 400 passengers in a 3-class configuration, but have roughly the same space or double the space of the Airbus A350. And if the demand increased, it could be extended in future. The idea would be that it could use the production line similar to the current Airbus A350, and perhaps if the fuselages were the only new thing and you use components from all the other aircraft, including potentially the same cockpit so you didn't have to retrain pilots, that would get airlines very interested indeed. In fact, this is starting to sound very much like a new Found and Explained topic that I should chuck on the channel. And perhaps we do also need to wonder that had Airbus gone ahead and built this much smaller double-decker aircraft, we might have seen a a greater business success for the Airbus A380 program. But needless to say, the airlines can't get enough of it, and I can't wait to see what happens next on this aviation chapter. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for this channel for more aviation news. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, welcome to Aviation Station here in our new wonderful studio here in Sydney, Australia. That's right, we have moved locations and now we have the capacity to have a permanent studio set up. So it does mean in those cold winter months, which it is right now here in Sydney, Australia, which is not really that cold, I'm wearing a t-shirt, that we can actually be warm and cozy and still give you the very freshest and greatest aviation news. So be sure to stick around and tune in and hit that subscribe button for more aviation news story, especially as we go into the aviation show season. That's right, next week we've got the big air show in England where hopefully we'll see some orders and some maybe new aircraft. In particular, we're talking about the Airbus A380. So stay tuned for that.